right, everyone. Welcome to the Stoa. It's good to see all the beautiful faces in the room today. Today we have Rebecca Altman in a cool session called Lost Will, Reclaiming the Wild Voice of the Soul. And we'll introduce Rebecca properly in a moment, but I'll explain how this session came about. My friend, Hannah Robbins, who will be our MC today, as a student of Rebecca's Wonder Sessions, and some of you may know that Hannah is the editor to my daily journals, my daily Stoic-ish journals. And this is like a common occurrence that happens in my journaling experience reading Hannah's edits, is that every time I do this like sexy wisdom bomb, like, oh my God, I'm so deep, Hannah comments is, oh yeah, Rebecca mentioned that like 10 years ago or something like that. And I'm like, who's this mysterious like Rebecca lady? I gotta find out more about her. And turns out that a few people in the few Stoans are part of Rebecca's course, and Hannah suggested her to come on, and I think it was a brilliant idea. So excited to have her here today. And yeah, so I will tag in Hannah, and she will introduce Rebecca and explain the protocols of the session today. So Hannah, tag you're it.
Hello. Well, I've been learning from Rebecca from quite a few years now. I started out reading her articles and her newsletter all about herbs and magic and connecting to nature and all those beautiful things. And I really love her intuitive understanding of plants. And through the most recent course that I'm taking from her, the Wonder Sessions, I've been learning to expand on that into all sorts of different realms, working with not just plants, but different elements and even people now. So I've learned so much from her, and she's a great mentor of mine. And I hope to share some of what I learned and some of why I respect Rebecca and her work so much with you today. Rebecca, do you have any important notes to add about who you are, or is that enough to go on for now?
I think that's enough to go on for now.
Okay. So I will ask you a few questions to get the discussion started. And while we're doing that, I would love if anyone listening today has any questions, pop them in the chat in writing, and just indicate that it's a question by putting question at the front of it. And that way, when I'm reading through them to find some juicy questions to ask, I will be able to locate them more easily. And since this is being recorded to be put on YouTube later on, if you could just indicate if you do not want to be on YouTube, then I can read your question for you. Yeah, so let's get started. So the topic today is will and finding this connection to your inner guidance. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what will or free will or inner guidance means to you?
I can do that. I need to gather my thoughts for a second. I do this a lot. Just to warn you all, there will be a lot of staring into space. Let's see, when it comes to will, I first learned about the concept of it in my Magic with a K days, when I got really into reading Aleister Crowley's works, and his whole thing was do what thou wilt. And in those days of my own personal life and my own personal journey, that was very exciting to me, not because I saw will as an expression of the deeper self, but because, sorry, I just saw Peter's comment, that was funny. But because I actually wasn't connected to my deeper self, and because I wasn't connected to my heart. So what I heard in that was everyone should get to do it. Am I allowed to swear at the Stoa? Okay, everyone should get to do what they want and fuck everyone else. And it was like the sort of I mean, I still have a very strong anarchist bent, but it was very much like, yeah, fuck everyone else. I'll do what I want. I'll drive over the meridian and, all of that. And after I left my Magic with a K days and started getting more into connecting with the earth and learning from the earth and learning about the body and how our body holds so much, and our body is basically like this, like the physical expression of who we are, and actually started to connect with my own heart. And from there, and from the perspective of the body, want and will took on such a different sense of meaning to me, because it was no longer about like up here, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that, and more about where is my heart leading me? Where is my gut leading me? Like, where is this being that is so so knowing and such an inhabitation of our spirit, that is like this compass that guides us to places, and so want and will took on a completely different meaning when I started to actually connect with my own body and connect with my heart. And it was no longer about this idea of I want what I want and fuck everyone else, and more to do with this idea of our being is an expression of our purpose. Like, we are purpose. And I don't mean that in a, call it capitalist society sense, that like we're all here to do stuff and earn money, but in the sense of like our being, the very light of who we are, is purpose. And that purpose is expressed through, like, if you're drinking water, and 1 second, that was necessary. If you're, cleaning up cat shit and waking up for the 20th time in the middle of the night, or whatever it is, like, your being is purpose. And when I started looking at it in that way, our want and our will started to be not just like an egotistical expression of self, but the very expression of our being, who we are. And so many of us learn to suppress it, or are taught to suppress it so early. Like, I think most of us have memories or experiences early in life where we say like, I want that. And it's like, don't be spoiled, or that's inconvenient, or who do you think you are? Or you don't get to have that. You don't get to say that. You don't get to voice it. You don't get to, whatever it was. Like, for me, it was school. I did not want to go to school. Kind of inconvenient for a single parent to have a child not go to school. So I went to school. So many of us have these things, right? I can see all of your faces. So and I read, oh goodness, it would help if I actually remembered the name of the book. It was one of 2 books. I think it was Wild by Jay Griffiths, where she talks about being in West Papua. And she was there with a tribe of people when they were being vaccinated against a disease that was killing the children of the tribe. I read it 10 years ago, so if I'm completely wrong or have like dreamed up some of this, I apologize. But she was standing there in the line with the people, and a wee boy gets taken up by his dad, put in the chair, Doctors Without Borders are there, go to vaccinate the boy, and the boy goes, I don't want it. Not in English. There was a translator. The wee boy says, I don't want it. And the dad said, okay, let's go. And the doctor was like, what are you doing? This is really important. This disease is killing children. Your child might die if he doesn't get this vaccination. And the dad was like, he doesn't want it. And the doctor was like, yeah, but he doesn't actually understand what's happening here. So it's important that he gets it. And the dad was like, he doesn't want it. And they walked off. And that story stuck with me so much because it was, I think, the first time that I had read about like a society where the will is respected above all else, even in a 3-year-old child who does not understand the big picture. And it really shook my foundations because it's such an expression of our soul or our being or whatever you want to call it, that in seeing how it was treated in another culture, I was able to see how it affects us negatively in this culture, all of our cultures, because I'm assuming that we're all over the world. Yeah, so that's.
Yeah, I'm noticing a lot of sort of thorough threads about, making yourself small for other people, or changing what you want to fit society. And, when that isn't quite in line with yourself, that can have a big impact. And sometimes it happens so early that we don't even notice how those forces are shaping us until we're, introduced to something that's so shockingly different that it brings that to light. Does that sound right?
That sounds exactly right.
So I guess from there, the question is, if you aren't feeling connected to that deeper desire of the self, or a way of expressing your life as perhaps a life work of art, as Peter likes to describe, how do you get there? Or how do you start to get there?
It's funny because I want to like give you a list of things, bullet points, except what my mouth wants to say is through the body. And okay, this makes sense now. It didn't make sense when I wanted to say it, but all of a sudden it does. You know how in so many ways we override our body's messages? Like, I do this all the time because I love reading. And so despite the fact that my body wants to go to sleep at 9:30 p.m., at 11:30 p.m., I'm still like, one more chapter, just one more chapter. Or like how I'm hungry. What time is it? Does anyone else do that? Like decide or realize you're hungry and then immediately check the time to see if your hunger is justified. And when you think about it, how silly is that? Like, I'm hungry as I'm hungry. And then it's like, but it's only 11:30. I can't be hungry. That's wrong. My body is wrong. We can discuss this again in half an hour at a rational time. Right? I'm tired, but why am I tired? This doesn't make sense. And for every single thing that our body tells us, often loudly, often it's really, really loud. And for every single thing, we run it past this filter to be like, yeah, but are your needs justified right now? And so I think that one of the ways to reconnect with it is to start to allow these body messages and desires to be what they are. You know, sometimes it's actually impossible. My cat has come to tell me that she is having body messages and she wants third breakfast. So if you hear her yowling, that's what's happening. She's not starving, I promise. No, you're not having a fourth breakfast. So yeah, to start to listen to our bodies more, and you know, when hungry, eat. When tired, at least go and lie down for 5 minutes. When you need to go to the loo, go to the loo. And
I'm wondering if I could interrupt. Where does this type of practice of paying attention to the signals you're getting from your body, where does that lead you, do you think? Is there something beyond that? Or does it just keep going? Does it plateau?
It does lead somewhere. I think it's in part due to switching this off, or at least reconfiguring the hierarchy of order giving or of justification from, because I don't think you can't switch your brain off, and you can't stop going like, I'm hungry, but you can go, I'm hungry, what time is it? Why am I checking the time? That's silly, I'm hungry, I'll eat. And after a while, through shifting the structure, we start to see how much the brain likes to get in between our wants and acting on them. Because this is, I think, something that we all learn it so young. And for most of us, I think it is a survival mechanism, because it's, you know, when you're a wee baby, the love that you receive from your caregivers is like very much determines your survival, you know? So we start doing it in order to please. And because of that, it's such like a tightly woven mechanism that most of us are not aware of our wants. Oh, good. Sometimes I start talking and I don't actually know where I'm going with it until it connects to something, and then I'm like, thank God. So we don't know, for the most part, what we actually deeply, deeply desire with our hearts. So going in through the body means we get used to switching this off, and then we get used to feeling what's happening in here, because want comes from the body as well. And actually, let's all do this. If you think about something that pleases you, or something that delights you, or something that gives you the warm fuzzies. Could be an activity, a food, a puppy, a cute bunny rabbit, a perfect cappuccino. And think about it with your head for a second. But then after you've thought about it with your head, put your hand on your heart and your belly. And as you think about this thing that delights you, or that you love, it could be a person as well. See if you can think about it with your heart. See if you can think about it with the cells of your belly. See if you can unclench your jaw. Maybe relax your shoulders a little. Since we're here, maybe let go in your belly too. Let your belly soften. And then let your pelvis soften as well. Like the bones of your pelvis are spreading. And maybe just let your thighs soften and relax too. And the backs of your knees. And your feet can spread like puddles. And as you sit there, feeling your body soften, can you do a wee scan of your body from your head to your feet, and just feel for areas where you might be experiencing tension. It could be a lot of tension or a little tension. Just, you don't need to change it. just see it and note it, whether it's in your shoulders or your chest or your belly, behind your knees or in your feet. Choose one of those areas of tension. And just pick one of them and start to tense it more. Gently. And tense it more. And tense it more. Now start to tense it more and more until it starts to become a little uncomfortable. I want it to be uncomfortable. So keep tensing. And keep tensing. And when it gets to the point where you're like, okay, Rebecca, this sucks, take a deep breath and drop it completely. And breathe. Maybe move around the area that you were tensing. And breathe into it. And now, with your body, think about the thing or something that delights you. Can you feel how your body responds to thinking about something? Where do you feel it in your body? Or what does it feel like in your body? To me, it feels like shimmers or wiggles, like my cells are wiggling in delight. And you know how sometimes when you can't decide between two things or you have a big decision to make, and often what we'll do is weigh pros, cons, write lists of reasons to do things. But our bodies are so clever. And that feeling that you have in your body when you're connected into your physicality and your being and your energy is fully inhabiting who you are. And you think about something that delights you and your whole body, like a compass, turns towards it and wiggles or shimmers or shines or beams or blossoms. We're all different. It feels like pleasure. It feels simple, doesn't it? That feeling. And it's one thing to be up here and be like, do I like that? Do I want that? I don't know. But when you know how it feels in your body, then you have a compass that's always there that will always tell you. Like, that doesn't lie. You can't, get the wiggles over ketchup flavored hot chocolate, or a snot burger. I really like seeing people's faces go. Like when you have chemistry with another person, you know, it's very easy to make a list, but then your body is either yes or no. Friendships, food, sleep, places that feel good or don't feel good. It's very simple. So these listenings, starting to listen to and give validity, more validity to the body's desires over our brains. It is the way to connect to having that experience in your body constantly. Whereas like, yes, no, there, no, there. I want to eat that. I don't want to eat that.
I have another question. I think there are a lot of explorers in our midst, and particularly explorers of the self. And I think there might be something here that I want to explore a little bit in relation to that. Oh my gosh, I feel so much more relaxed after that.
I do too.
A while ago, you said something about there are two ways to get to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. There's hiking down it slowly, and then there's the fast way.
That's really good. I said that.
Yeah, you did.
That's brilliant.
It might have been slightly different wording. And I think it was in the exploration of the self portion of the Wonder Sessions, where there's a lot of this deeper work and a lot of the general tendencies to want to go and dig into all the problem areas. And so I'm thinking, you know, how can we apply this inner compass to exploration of the self when there's that tendency going on, or resistance as well?
Can you explain your question in a different way? I just don't want to start talking about digging and go off on one of my 20-minute tangents and not actually answer what it is.
I kind of wanted to hear the tangent. Yeah, so if we have this inner compass to use while we are looking at parts of ourself that we want to look at, but it might be uncomfortable, and you know, where how does that help us find what's ripe to be worked on and maybe what needs some more time in the oven? I'm mixing metaphors.
No, it's great. You know, I'm going to use a zit analogy.
All right.
And I'm also going to raise my desk because wait. Sorry. It's a movable desk and I just got really sick of sitting. That's better. Let's see. When it comes to using this compass for self-exploration, what many of us do, and I think it's because those of us who are prone to self-exploration or maybe self-healing or like I've always thought of it as, I think of myself as being an astronaut of my own psyche. And there are stories that we have that guide how we approach these things. And I think one of the stories that often drives how we approach our own self is the hero's journey, where the journey through the self is seen as something that involves, resisting sirens and slaying cyclopses and I can't remember what else he did. There was a lot. And then we see this reflected as well in movies and popular culture, and like it becomes very dramatic. And so I think I'll speak for myself that a lot of the way I approached this in the past was this idea that there needed to be epic battles. There needed to be a struggle. It needed to hurt somehow, even a tiny bit, because that means I'm doing something. And I've come to learn for myself and for others, and then seeing all of the wanderers go through this as well and learn to take this slowly, that are the universe is constantly expanding, and we are energy riding on that expansion. Therefore, we too are constantly expanding. If we were to do absolutely nothing in our lives, we would still expand and grow and change, like life is a lazy river and we don't need to paddle. And in learning not to struggle and learning to trust that these things are always going to come up. And I think what many of us do is sort of like when you have a zit. And when the zit's like right below the surface, Hannah's heard this so many times. The zit is like, maybe you can feel it, like it's under there and you're like, oh man, I'm gonna have such a zit in a week. And then you start picking at it and picking at it and picking at it because you're like, well, it's there. And then, not only do you have a zit, but you've got a massive scab. And then you've got a scar. And it's not fun. And I feel like many of us learn at some point that when you've got a zit under the surface, you have to just wait it out. And eventually the zit comes to the surface and you have like one embarrassing day out in public. And then, you come home, put a hot cloth on it, like touch it, and it explodes. And then the next day, it's pretty much gone. I know it's disgusting. You're welcome. Self-healing is like that, where what most of us do is feel like something's coming up and then we're like, I need to look at this. I need to look at this thing. There's something happening. I need to figure this out. Is this from my childhood? Do I need to call a therapist? Do I need to have a soul retrieval? Do I need to do a salt scrub? Do I need to fix this? Is this affecting my health? Is this why I had a headache yesterday? Is it because of something I've been eating? I need to call a friend. I need to call another friend. And all of this is like picking and picking and picking. I'm not alone. I've been either picking at my face or my psyche, right? But we are all beings riding on the expansion of the universe. And we are all moving forwards. We all have things we want to do, areas that we want to move into in our lives that we stand in our own way over. And therefore, things are always going to come up. Always. And because the universe is constantly expanding and we are constantly expanding, these emotional or energetic zits come to the surface anyway. And what you find is that when they finally come to the surface and they're right there, like when it's so right there on the surface that you're like, if someone touches me, I'm going to start crying. Or it's so right there on the surface that you're like, I just exploded in rage over a missing shoe. Or, so right there on the surface that all of a sudden you're reliving a memory. That's when the zit is ready to pop. And then you will find it is not torturous. It's actually so easy. It comes so easily because the solution is embedded in the problem already. So our bodies guide that, because you can feel when it's under the surface and you can feel when it's on the surface, because when it's on the surface, it's already in the process of healing itself. And when it's under the surface, we want to pick at it and ruminate and try to figure it out and try to draw it to the surface. It doesn't work with zits or psyches. And I feel like when things are under the surface, the best thing to do is ignore it, because it's coming up anyway. And when it's on the surface, everything in your body and being is going to be like, yes, let's do this now. Let's have a fist fight with the past, or whatever it is, if you're not Scottish and don't want to have a fist fight with things.
I love that.
And then also when it comes to the body, resistance is a huge part of that as well. And what we tend to do, we feel resistance in our bodies. It's like a resistance. I think of it like as an embodied no to something. And that's its own message. So I think that is also something that needs, like, a body message that needs either respected or just welcomed.
I want to bring us around to Kevin's question, because he was asking about the little mini exercise that we did and something that came up for him. And I'm really curious to hear.
Do you want me to read it? Or...
No, I would like Kevin to read it.
Hi, how's it going? So thanks for that. That was nice. But your talk of the universe got me back into my head, so I'll be able to read this without being a fucking mess. And so in the exercise, you had us imagine something that was like pleasing or delighting to us. So what if while we were doing this activity, I was feeling the delight, magic without a K, I guess you would call it, just like feeling magic. What if it's like accompanied by a feeling of like terrible sadness that this delight would come to an end? Like, I was remembering just like a few experiences with friends, and I don't know. That's enough.
I think they come hand in hand. That within every joyful experience is the loss of that experience. And actually, there's two things I have to say. I'm gonna try and remember both of them. the first thing is that many of us, because like reconnecting with this, by this I mean like the energy of your heart and purpose and deeper being in the world, because it's something that we spend many years not listening to and covering up, what often happens is, you know how when a plant comes up in the spring and there's the earth, and then the plant starts pushing up and then the earth gets disrupted? Plant. That looked rude, I'm sorry. The feeling of our deeper heart self starting to come through is almost like that plant, like it will disturb the layers of protection that we have built for ourselves over the years. And these layers of protection, or just layers of things that we don't feel fully. Remember, like the body is this incredible emotional being, and we have so many experiences that we don't feel fully with our whole selves. And so then, you know, we start to connect with the deeper energy of our being, and like that soil being disrupted, the layers that we build over the surface to protect ourselves get stirred up a little. And in my experience with people, that is mostly sadness that comes up. So my question would be, is it sadness that comes from the deepest part of the self, or is it old sadness? Don't think it.
I'd have to feel into that one.
Yeah, but when you said lots of memories came up, it made me think old sadness. And
yeah, probably.
And so the way I approach this is sort of like with the zit thing, where it's like when it comes to the surface and it's there, you can feel it, but it doesn't necessarily need to be ignored if it's old. It just needs to be like felt and released. And some of these things can be like a simple, especially incredible memories that always come with that, like, I'm so glad it happened, I'm so sad it ended. One of the ways to sort of bring it, I don't know if this makes sense, but like allow the release and then bring it back full circle, is through allowing the sadness and then finding gratitude for what was. Because then that connects you back in with the heart feeling of what was the present then and what can be the present now. That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Mentally and emotionally. So.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
I can't remember what the second thing was, so it can't have been that important.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. And we are nearing the top of the hour. Do you have time for one more question, Rebecca? Yes. Okay. I would like to call Evan McCullen to the stand.
Hi. So this question was really hard to put into words. I'm not going to necessarily read exactly what I wrote, but I'm curious. So like there seem to be sort of two thematic strains in a lot of magical and other esoteric work of relating to will or true self. And one of them is sort of like an excavation, like removing everything that's not the true will. And I associate that a bit with Crowley and that polemic line. And then you also have something that I associate maybe a little bit more with Gurdjieff, where it's actually something that as much, maybe more than being sort of excavated, it needs to be built. So maybe like an additive versus a subtractive process or something like that. And obviously we can see elements of both, but I'm just curious, like how how do you generally approach the sort of integration of when it feels like you're getting mixed or contradictory messages, not from the verbal mind, but from the deeper layers? And so just anything you felt worth sharing on that.
My mind's just still stuck on the fact that you could understand Gurdjieff. I'm going to reiterate what I heard so that I don't do the tangent thing, because we're nearing the top of the hour. There are, as far as you know, two different ways to approach will. One is through excavation and digging, and one is through building or working on like constructing it. And how do you develop this will when it's hard to hear it, when you have conflicting messages?
Right, and specifically honing in on the part about conflicting messages not coming from the sort of verbal mental layer. So you, in the exercise, you were talking about like heart versus gut are giving you conflicting messages, for example.
I feel like when we are having conflicting messages, it's because either there's no right answer because they're both good, they're both things you want, or both directions that you could move in, and either one will get you where you want to go, or the answer isn't there yet. And because the conflicting thing, it's sort of like the it's like the Hegelian dialectic thing. You know, if there's still a thesis and antithesis, then we need to wait for the synthesis. And the synthesis comes. And so if there are conflicting messages, what I find more helpful is to connect into joy, connect into that feeling, the gratitude, connect into these things that delight you without necessarily trying to choose yet. Because I don't know, like, we all make decisions and move in different ways. So it's very hard to say to you, like, well, this is how it's going to be for you, because we're all so different. Like, you know, I will sit with two different things and not be able to make a decision because there's no clear yes in one direction. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, like a new option will emerge and I'll be like, I'm going over there. And it's like, there's no decisions necessary, but that's me. And I know that we're all different. So I cannot necessarily speak to how you would move in that way, but I can say that the synthesis does come. And so if there's conflict, then it's sort of like the zit thing again. Wait, and it will come to the surface. That help?
Yeah, thank you for that. I really like that. I mean, it's something I don't often hear in discussions about like getting in touch with the body's wisdom, the intuitive, the true self, etc. The acknowledgement or admission of the experience, sometimes that actually doesn't give you an answer. And so that's very nice to hear. So thank you.
Okay.
So I think it's just about time to wrap up. And I've really liked having you here, Rebecca. Thank you so much for contributing your time and your understanding of the world that is so unique. I wanted to know where we can find you, and if people are looking for more of your work, where can they do that?
Well, first of all, thank you for saying, hey, Rebecca, you need to meet Peter. Because this is wonderful. And I also love this format where I can see all of your faces, because that's actually, it's so lovely. Yeah. And if you would like to find me, the best place is actually on Facebook, because I love the Facebook and I am on it a lot. And I have a group called Wonderkin where I teach classes and I do free, we only just started doing them in Wonderkin in Facebook Live format, because I used to send out long newsletters and stopped doing that. And so I don't fully know what to call these live classes yet, but they're every couple of weeks and on various topics like this type of thing. The next one is going to be on resistance, probably next week. So Wonderkin is a great place to connect with me and with other people who are in the Wonder world, who are generally interesting and intelligent and have observations about the world that are fascinating. Yeah, that's the best place.
Sounds perfect. I put a link in the chat for anyone looking for that. And do you have time to end us off, Peter?
Yep. So thank you, Hannah, for emceeing today's session. Hannah's first MC job. So thank you, Hannah. And thank you for introducing me to Rebecca. And Rebecca, thanks so much for coming to the Stoa today. There's many things I've taken away, including a desire to pop a pimple for some reason. I don't know. I just really want to get that one right now. So you can check out thestoa.ca for a bunch of upcoming events. We have one right now. I'm going to jump on Clubhouse. It's a Clubhouse event, and it's Speak Only If It Will Improve Upon the Silence. Speak Only If It Will Improve Upon the Silence. It's going to be an innovative conversational artistry type event that I do with AJ Bond. So if you have Clubhouse, you can jump on this now. So everyone, thanks for coming to the Stoa today.